Samurai Nippon. The fall of the Muromachi Shogunate.
Opening.
Gong, gong, gong. The sound of temple bells echoes through the ancient capital of Kyoto. The time is the first year of Tensho, July 18th, 523 AD, in the evening twilight. On this day, Japanese history would change forever. This was the moment when Ashikaga Yoshiaki, the 15th shogun military ruler of the Muromachi Shogunate, was finally expelled from Kyoto. The man who expelled him was Oda Nobunaga. Once Yoshiaki's benefactor who had elevated him to the shogunate, he was now his greatest enemy. Why did benefactor and beneficiary turn against each other? Why did the 238-year Muromachi Shogunate meet its end? Today, we delve into the inner hearts of these two men to unravel Japan's greatest political drama.
But first, please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. This helps the algorithm show you more videos perfectly suited to your interests.
Chapter 1. Background and Historical Setting.
This was the height of Japan's Sengoku period age of warring states. The Muromachi Shogunate's authority had fallen to earth. With warlords vying for power across the nation, the shogun, though bearing the title of military ruler, could only effectively control the Kyoto area, a figurehead at best. In this context, the shocking assassination of the 13th shogun, Ashikaga Yoshiteru, by the Miyoshi triumvirate occurred in 1565. Yoshiteru's younger brother, Yoshiaki, was serving as a Buddhist monk at Kofukuji Temple at the time. His brother's sudden death completely changed Yoshiaki's destiny. Return to secular life and become shogun. Came the urgent appeals from supporters. However, Yoshiaki lacked military power. To reclaim the capital and rule as shogun, he needed the backing of a powerful warlord. Initially, Yoshiaki sought help from Asakura Yoshikage of Echizen province. However, Asakura was hesitant. He judged that supporting a shogun candidate is too dangerous. Next, Yoshiaki turned to Takeda Yoshizumi of Wakasa and Rokaku Yoshikata of Omi, but none could provide decisive support. Then appeared Oda Nobunaga before Yoshiaki. In 1567, having just completed his conquest of Mino province and renamed Inabayama Castle to Gifu Castle, Nobunaga readily accepted Yoshiaki's request without hesitation. Why? Nobunaga had clear calculations. Tenka Fubu Tiensha, unify the realm through military might. The true meaning of Nobunaga's slogan was to unify all of Japan through force. To achieve this, he needed to utilize authority figures like the imperial court and the shogun family. His strategy was to make Yoshiaki shogun while wielding real power as his guardian. In September 1568, Nobunaga began his march to Kyoto, Joraku Shanglo with 20,000 troops. He defeated Rokaku Yoshikata and Omi, scattered the Miyoshi triumvirate in Setsu, and captured Kyoto in just 2 months. Yoshiaki was officially installed as the 15th shogun. On the surface, it seemed like the beginning of an ideal partnership.
Chapter 2. The Man Called Ashikaga Yoshiaki.
To understand the fall of the Muromachi Shogunate, we must understand Ashikaga Yoshiaki. Born in 1537, he was 12 years younger than his brother Yoshiteru. Intelligent from childhood and skilled in waka, poetry and calligraphy, he was essentially a cultured intellectual. However, he was reportedly introverted by nature and had little connection to political ambition. During his monk years at Kofukuji, Yoshiaki went by the name Kakuke, morning prayers, sutra copying, meditation. Perhaps he found inner peace in this regular religious life. But his brother's assassination changed everything. After becoming shogun, Yoshiaki had a clear vision: revival of the Muromachi Shogunate. He wanted to restore the glory built by his ancestor Ashikaga, Takoji, and truly rule as shogun. This desire can be read in the numerous letters he sent to Nobunaga. However, Yoshiaki critically lacked two things: military power and political execution ability. He was an idealist who thought, if I have the shogun's authority, surely everyone will obey. Such naive thinking would prove fatal in the brutal Sengoku period. Yet Yoshiaki did possess personal charm. He was gentle, courteous, and culturally sophisticated. Kyoto's court nobles highly valued these qualities. They saw him as an elegant shogun. In stark contrast to the barbaric warrior Nobunaga, important historical documents help us understand Yoshiaki's inner world, the Gonaishi Yuneishu letters he sent to various daimyo. Reading these reveals Yoshiaki's frustration and irritation. Nobunaga proceeds with politics arbitrarily, and he makes decisions without consulting the shogun. Such complaints seep through between the lines. Particularly striking is a letter sent to Takeda Shingen in 1570, containing almost scream-like pleas. Please do something about Nobunaga's tyranny. By this point, Yoshiaki's distrust of Nobunaga had become decisive. However, he still lacked the courage for open confrontation. Yoshiaki was fundamentally a pacifist who preferred dialogue over warfare. But the harsh reality of the Sengoku period would mercilessly crush such idealism.
Chapter 3. From Honeymoon to Fracture.
From 1568 to 1570, Nobunaga and Yoshiaki's relationship appeared harmonious on the surface. Nobunaga addressed Yoshiaki as Wisama, your lordship, and showed proper respect due a shogun. Yoshiaki likewise treated Nobunaga as Udaijin Dono, minister of the right with gratitude. It seemed an ideal lord-vassal relationship. However, cracks were already forming beneath the surface. The trigger was Nobunaga's regulations for the palace Denshu Okite Dianjongjang. This was a 15-article code strictly regulating the shogun's behavior, including no correspondence with daimyo without permission, and no granting of court ranks without Nobunaga's approval. For Yoshiaki, this was nothing but humiliation. I am the shogun. Why do I need Nobunaga's permission for everything? Such thoughts began casting dark shadows over Yoshiaki's heart. The decisive turning point came with the Battle of Kanagasaki in 1570. The Asakura Asai alliance forces trapped Nobunaga, forcing him to flee back to Kyoto barely alive. Yoshiaki may have secretly hoped, if Nobunaga loses, my time will come. However, Nobunaga recovered magnificently. In June that year, he defeated the Asakura Asai alliance at the Battle of Anagawa, regaining superiority. Yoshiaki's disappointment was easy to imagine. So Nobunaga's dominance continues. Such despair gradually radicalized his actions. In 1571, the shocking burning of Mount Hiei occurred. Nobunaga burned down Enryakuji temple and massacred thousands of monks and civilians. Yoshiaki protested vehemently, "Enemy of Buddha!" An act against heaven's way, but Nobunaga completely ignored him. This incident completely changed Yoshiaki's view of Nobunaga. This man is too dangerous, and at this rate, Japan's traditional culture will be destroyed. In Yoshiaki's mind, Nobunaga transformed from benefactor to threat. Simultaneously, Yoshiaki secretly began constructing an anti-Nobunaga encirclement network. Takeda Shingen, Asakura Yoshikage, Asai Nagamasa, the Miyoshi Triumvirate, and Honganji Kenyo. He sent secret letters to these forces, forming pacts to overthrow Nobunaga. While playing the obedient shogun publicly, he prepared rebellion privately. Yoshiaki's duplicity reached its peak here. However, Nobunaga was also aware of Yoshiaki's movements. Reports came constantly from subordinates like Akichi, Mitsuhide, and Hosokawa Fujitaka. The shogun is plotting rebellion. This information brought Nobunaga's anger to its peak. Still, he hadn't crossed the final line, understanding the political risks of directly attacking the shogun.
Chapter 4. Final Battle. Collapse of the Nobunaga Encirclement.
In 1572, the Yoshiaki encirclement network finally moved. Takeda Shingen fired the first shot, declaring he would march to Kyoto and destroy Nobunaga. The Tiger of Kai had finally bared his fangs. Yoshiaki's heart leaped with joy. This will end Nobunaga's era. However, this expectation was far too optimistic. Shingen was indeed powerful. At Mimatagahara in Totomi, he completely crushed the Tokugawa Oda alliance forces. Yoshiaki must have jumped for joy. As expected of the Tiger of Kai. Now the tide has turned, but fate was cruel. In April 1573, Takeda Shingen died of illness. Shingen's death was a fatal blow to the Yoshiaki encirclement network. The Takeda forces retreated to Kai, and other powers couldn't hide their dismay. Yet Yoshiaki hadn't given up. There are still the Asakura and Asai, and we have Honganji too. He kept reassuring himself. Yoshiaki's mental state around this time was presumably quite unstable. His handwriting in letters became erratic and contents incoherent. Destroy Nobunaga. We will surely win. The gods and Buddha protect us. Almost as if trying to convince himself. In July 1573, Nobunaga finally delivered his ultimatum, the 17-article opinion. Its content was no longer advice to a shogun, but complete reprimand. Cease arbitrary actions, stop plotting rebellion, quietly focus on shogunal duties. Nobunaga's anger seemed to rise from the paper itself. Yoshiaki's response was surprisingly defiant. "I will appeal to the imperial court. Nobunaga is the real rebel. Do not slight the shogun's authority." Reconciliation between the two was now impossible. Rupture was only a matter of time. However, Yoshiaki still had one trump card: imperial authority. On July 3rd, Yoshiaki requested an imperial edict to destroy Nobunaga from the court. This was his final resort, having the emperor declare Nobunaga an enemy of the throne. However, the court was already under Nobunaga's influence. The emperor was perplexed and ultimately gave no response. Isolated, Yoshiaki had no choices left. On July 15th, Nobunaga's 20,000-strong army began marching toward Kyoto. Yoshiaki had at most a few hundred troops. The outcome was obvious. Still, Yoshiaki holed up in Nijo Castle for final resistance, perhaps thinking, "I'll show the shogun's dignity." The battle ended in mere hours. Yoshiaki's resistance was sporadic with no organized combat. By afternoon, Nijo Castle had fallen and Yoshiaki was forced to surrender. However, Nobunaga didn't kill Yoshiaki. Leave Kyoto. This was Nobunaga's final mercy. Thus, the 238-year Muromachi Shogunate met its effective end. Yoshiaki was exiled to Wakai Castle in Kawachi, completely losing his real power as shogun. Interestingly, Yoshiaki retained the formal shogun title until 1588, but it was already an empty designation.
Chapter 5. Conclusion and Historical Impact.
Yoshiaki's expulsion held historical significance beyond mere political incident. It marked the end of medieval Japan and the crucial turning point heralding the early modern period. The shogun system as military leader of the warrior class, the dual power structure of court nobles and warriors, and decentralized feudalism all would rapidly change from this day forward. For Nobunaga, Yoshiaki's expulsion was a crucial step toward realizing Tenka Fubu. Freed from shogunal authority, Nobunaga could pursue reforms more freely. Commercial promotion through free markets, rakuichi rakuza, reishi reizuo, advancement of Nanban trade through Christian protection, and establishment of innovative military systems. These policies became possible only after the burden of Yoshiaki was removed. Meanwhile, Yoshiaki's later life was also intriguing. After spending years at Wakai Castle in Kawachi, he moved to Tomo in Bingo under Mori Teramoto's protection in 1576. Here, Yoshiaki established what became known as the Tomo Shogunate, an exile government serving as spiritual pillar for anti-Nobunaga forces. He maintained Muromachi Shogunate authority as formal shogun until the end. Yoshiaki's psychological transformation is also noteworthy. After defeat in power struggles, Yoshiaki seemed to regain his gentle nature. Though life in Tomo was modest, he enjoyed waka poetry and tea ceremony, recovering his original identity as a cultured person. When freed from attachment to power, people can find their true selves. Yoshiaki's later years teach us this lesson. Historically, the Muromachi Shogunate's end brought fundamental changes to Japan's state system. The transition from the three-tier Emperor-Shogun-Shugo daimyo structure to the new Emperor-Kanpaku daimyo power structure. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Nobunaga's successor, achieved national unification using the imperial court position of Kanpaku Imperial Regent, while Tokugawa Ieyasu later established the Edo shogunate as Sei Taishogun Barbarian, subduing Generalissimo. Interestingly, when establishing the Edo shogunate, Tokugawa Ieyasu thoroughly studied the precedents of the Ashikaga Shogun family. Why did the Muromachi Shogunate fall? How can we build a long-term stable government? Ieyasu learned much from Yoshiaki's failures, constructing a more solid shogunate system. In this sense, Yoshiaki's defeat wasn't meaningless. It became a valuable negative example for later rulers. Yoshiaki died in 1597 at age 61. He maintained the shogun title until the end, living as the final symbol of the Muromachi Shogunate. His death brought complete end to Ashikaga family rule. However, what Yoshiaki left behind was not insignificant universal themes still relevant today: the relationship between authority and real power, the gap between ideals and reality, and the conflict between tradition and innovation,
ending Ashikaga Yoshiaki and Oda Nobunaga.
the confrontation between these two men transcended personal rivalry. It was a collision of eras themselves. The traditionalist cultural figure versus the revolutionary realist. We cannot easily say which was right. However, one thing can be said with certainty without this rupture: Japan's early modern period would never have begun. Because of Yoshiaki's resistance, Nobunaga could become a true reformer. And it is on the extension of those reforms that our modern Japan stands today. Next time you visit Kyoto, please see the ruins of Nijo Castle. There, the stone walls that witness the end of the 238-year Muromachi Shogunate still stand quietly as witnesses to history.